The World Series of Warzone tournament in Las Vegas just concluded with Team Falcons taking home the trophy and 300K. For 2 days straight, the top 40 trios around the globe played 13 total games, and it was just another chapter in the history of World Series of Warzone. And I mean, since May, the trios have been competing in online open qualifier tournaments in order to qualify for this event in Las Vegas, and it was an interesting event to say the least. So in today's video, I'm gonna recap the tournament. I can't break down everything because there was 40 teams, but I'll highlight the winners, some of the best moments. Before we get into this video, if you haven't subscribed to the channel and you want to see more Call of Duty videos just like this one, feel free to subscribe. And now let's get into the video. So this year was structured differently from every other Warzone tournament. The match point format is from Apex Legends, and on day one, teams are playing for placements for the following day. So depending on where your team places on day one will determine your point advantage going into day two. So let's say I got in first place on day one. On day two, I'll start with a 40-point advantage. But no matter what, on day two, teams must reach 150 points in order to get to match point. And once a team reaches that 150-point threshold, they must win the game in order to win the tournament. I honestly prefer the structure for Warzone tournaments, and honestly it would have been better to see more than one team reach the match point, as we'll see later on. But I mean, one thing is clear, it's just Team Falcons is miles ahead of the other teams. The scoring system for this tournament was pretty simple. It heavily emphasized placements and eliminations. So a kill is 1 point, and the multipliers are based on where your team is positioned. And then some other slight changes was that redeploy packs, reinforcement flares, gulag entry kits, all that type of stuff is not available. So if you lose your gulag, the only way you can come back is by being bought by one of your teammates. And almost every team was rocking the same loadout with different variations of the STG and the static HV. I've seen a few people rocking the striker, but this was definitely the meta, and it has been for quite a while in Warzone. I also noticed that in people's loadouts, every team was running smokes and thermites, and with munition boxes, you could just keep replenishing it over and over again. So that is the format of the tournament, but now let's get into day one. And tournament's first day, as Z-Laner said, it was disastrous. The biggest issue was that some players got dev errors mid-match and timed out from the game, sometimes in clutch situations like in mid to late game. And I mean, if there's $1 million on the line, things like that take away from the competition, but there are some problems that can be avoided next time around. For example, a clip surfaced where Biffle realized he was playing on different PC specs than his teammate right next to him.
Yeah, is there any reason why we have different graphics cards? Like mine's 7600, his 7900.
And because of this and other issues, the wait times for day one between games was like over an hour at some points. But there were definitely some bumps in the road on the first day. But besides that, to begin the tournament, I thought the games were pretty entertaining to watch, despite people getting dev aired mid-game. There was teams from NA, EU, and EMEA regions making this a global event. But on the first day, 6 matches were played. It got off to a pretty hot start. Immediately, one of the top teams in the scene, Community, got off to a pretty great start, winning their initial land spot on high rise, and other teams like FaZe Black and Team Aiden were also just starting to warm up in the first match. During this endgame, the final circle ended up being on a mountain, which happened a lot of times, which opened up the map and gave a lot of open ground for these teams to fight. And the one major thing I noticed through every game of watching World Series of Warzone was how important positioning is in the final moments of the game. Usually the teams that manages to hold and fight for the high ground win the map, and this happened to be the case in game one with the North American team Revenge Tour with Slide, B-Mark, and J-Tech pulling off the dub in the first game on land. And B-Mark was turned off of this win, and you could tell he was running off a straight adrenaline.
That's the best start we could have asked for. Like, honestly, the adrenaline's going. My heart's racing 1,000,000 miles a minute right now.
Even after game one, Revenge Tour was in 8th place still. They only had 7 eliminations, and when you win a game, you get a 2x multiplier, which means they only got 14 points in this game. And Team Falcons were leading the charge, as they were the favorites to win the entire tournament, as they also won last year. But despite being first in the tournament, Team Falcons would not have that same luck going into game 2 after being eliminated in the top 25 by FLS. This opened a map for other teams to take advantage. A European team making waves in the community lately has been Omit EU, with the rising Warzone pro Enkyo, one of the scene's top prospects right now. And in map 2, they started making a statement, fighting for high ground, ultimately making it to the endgame circle. By this point, Team Echo and FIFA Kill were climbing the overall standings, but it was time for the Europeans to take over. Enkyo started frying, and he had 9 kills this map, leading the tournament with 14 kills overall by this point, and he ultimately carried his team to the win.
Gets 1 week, cleans it up. How about one game? Finally cut down. Omit EU on top. It's APAC down below. X and Q only has 2. It's a 2v2. Omit EU could take it with the best position, but they've got to finish the job.
A 3v2. Welcome back. And now we just crest the hill. Start opening fire. The trades go forward, but Enkyo, maybe one of the youngest players on our land stage, making
Cloud9
the
was Joe, Jace, and Breadman's team, and they're a pretty popular team. They got popular streamers on their team as well, but they really struggled throughout this event. A lot of people had high expectations for them going in here, but map 3 really highlighted their struggles through this tournament, as this map was one of their many early exits. However, COD community started heating up on this map, and they led the entire tournament in kills this weekend. Team Falcons even bounced back from their previous game and made an early rotation for the zone pull. Watching these guys play is pretty incredible, to be honest. They're always in the right position, but the final circles were around Old Town, which meant that some players could hide in the buildings until the end of the game, and that's exactly what some teams did. Omit EU tried to take Falcons off a high ground because that's really what you need to win the game. They hit him with a bunker buster, but it ultimately failed. And on the other side of the map, Team Destroy was stuck inside of a building, and they were battling it out with a French team, but Zach got the cleanup kills. However, with the man advantage and height advantage, Team Falcons were able to close out the game, first of many wins in this tournament. And after every game, they did a post-game interview.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, our team, we're one of the best 3 trios in the game. So all the other teams, they suck. So
and things on map 4 would be exactly the same. The endgame circle was nearly identical to map 1, and Team Falcons learned from their mistakes. They made it close to the end, but they failed in map 1, but then they bounced back in this circle. And as you can see, the final 4 squads played each of their corners. This was a really interesting endgame to watch. Team Falcons had the best position and were waiting for the zone pull and held Omit EU outside the circle. They were stuck inside of a PDS, and they couldn't really do anything at the end of the map. And they got back-to-back wins on the day, putting them in the lead now by 20 points, and they just started extending this gap. And going into game 5, people were like, yo, they might actually win this again. Last year, if you guys remember, Biffle and Shifty won the World Series of Warzone tournament, but they didn't have Hisoka on their team like they do this year. They actually had Sage, but they picked up Hisoka as an upgrade, which obviously ultimately paid off, and this map showed it. With 25 teams left, Biffle and Shifty knocked out their former teammate Sage's team, and they were moving on this map. The European team VA Esports was also heating up. That's iVision SR's team, and map 5 here was probably one of their best games of the tournament. They were averaging about 11 kills per map, but Falcons wanted to send the Europeans a statement when they did this.
2 teams today, the top 2 teams maybe on paper. Who's going to get better at each other? Hisoka from behind wins the 1, wins the 2. Will he win it all? Yes! Shoots the bodies. The Falcons came to make a statement. They've already done it, and they're
Before
adding
the map, Aiden had an interview with the casters, and he said this.
Yeah, I mean, Team Falcons is doing great. Biffle's sitting right next to me, but he smells like so, yeah, keep it up, Biffle.
And honestly, the trash talk seemed to pay off, because the very next game, Aiden did this.
Right now, you can only expect Team Aiden to win this, get the 2 times multiplier, jump up this leaderboard. This is a massive moment, but I gotta just say, you can never count out Hisoka. Some crazy play, a couple thermites though. Hisoka gets cut down. Team Aiden on top with a massive game. Z-Smith, DJ Moss came to make a statement of their own, and
Winning
they
this
made
game brought Aiden's team from 5th place to 3rd, and there was only 1 game left on the day. At this point, Falcons had won 2 out of the 5 games, and I could tell this was the final map because teams started playing this way different than the rest of the maps. They were anxious to get as many points as possible, and teams started pushing heavy. I mean, by the middle of the game, the 4th zone, nearly half of the lobby was already gone. However, towards the end of the game, things really started to slow down and get more methodical, with the another wild endgame in the tunnels. Though teams like FaZe, Reply Totem, Echo, and Omit EU were having a good day competing, no one could match up against Team Falcons. After 110 eliminations and an average of 35 points per game, Team Falcons ended up winning their third game of the day, giving them a 50% win rate and first place on day one. They were dominating the tournament, but this was only the beginning. Every team had to come back for day two, but for now, day one of the trios tournament concluded, but the day was far from over. As with every other year, Activision hosted the annual Solo YOLO tournament, with one winner taking home the prize, and all the competitors from the Trios event were invited to play in the Solo YOLO tournament. And before the games even began, the casters predicted that Breadman, Jukesy, FIFA Kill, or Aiden would win this game, but it played out much differently than they expected. For this event, like I said, there is only one winner, and there's a grand prize of 50k, so people will play weird. They'll camp and wait till the end game in order to get this 50k, and it's a fun addition to World Series of Warzone that I hope they continue to do. It's just really entertaining to watch. The game was pretty chaotic and intense all the way through. All the people that the casters predicted were out by the final zone, but one Australian player named Zeppa was popping off this game, especially towards the end. He got a few clutch kills and it came down to the final circle, but a content creator from Toronto Ultra, Nick Cool, ended up getting a good position in the zone, and then this happened.
Are you kidding me?
So Nick Cool from Toronto Ultra won a $50,000 check after just one game of Warzone. I'm sure it was definitely a confidence booster going into day two, and we're about to see why in a few minutes. But at the end of day one and a lot of bumps in the road, we made it through, and it was on to day two, which from what I was reading from people at the event too, day two seemed to be a lot smoother. There was a lot less wait times. The game started pretty fast, so I'm glad that they were able to bounce back from day one. And day two was nothing short of domination from Team Falcons once again. And the biggest help that they had was that they had a 40-point advantage. Like I said, Team Falcons found themselves on top, leading by almost 100 points. Team Aiden was next in line with 122 points. Then Community was in third. Omit EU had 114 points, and in fifth place, Team Echo had 104. Every other team had 70 points or under and would have to start day two at a disadvantage. And the day one elimination leaders were Hisoka with 39, Biffle with 38, Dongi with 36, and Enkyo and Shifty were tied with 33 eliminations after 6 matches, which is honestly really impressive that Falcons were in the top 3 for eliminations, and it just shows why they placed in first place for day two. When the first match of day two started, the teams were off to a pretty fast start, with many squads dropping early. I'm sure there was a little bit of nerves going into day two because now everything is on the line. But just like in the previous day, as the circle started getting smaller, it led to the city, where there were lots of areas to camp on high ground. Falcons EMEA, who weren't off to a great start at the beginning of the tournament, were able to get some pretty good height advantage, but then they had to drop due to the zone pull. FaZe also made it to the end game, which is FaZe Swag's team, Adrian and Sage, and they were fighting in the lower parts of the building, but were ultimately wiped. However, the Solo YOLO winner from yesterday, Nick Cool's team, ended up clutching up. Colony 2K found a spot in a truck to camp until the zone got smaller, and with just a few squads left, Colony 2K used his movement to get this kill and win the game for his team. Nick Cool definitely used that momentum from the Solo YOLO tournament the previous day to win this first map, and it was a hectic way to start day two, but the production ran so much smoother than the previous day. And then we were off to map 2. As map 2 got underway, things got really scary for Team Aiden at the beginning. They almost got wiped early on and were almost one of the first squads out. Things were looking hopeless as they both lost their gulag, but Z Smith came to save the day and was the last alive in the gulag until he did this.
Fighting each other. Let's see who can get first blood. Z Smith looking to take the chow. Flank.
no.
Doesn't connect on anything. Z Smith trying to find his opponent. Where are they? Smoke and run even in the gulag. You kidding me? Still no connection.
Reload.
The zip is down. Z Smith takes it.
He gets out.
Smith gets out.
Omit EU and Falcons MENA were eliminated early on as well, and as the final circle came to a close, things began looking hopeless for FaZe as well. But before it closed, Destroy's team made a play call to jump and camp on one of the top roofs, which ultimately worked to their benefit. Like I said, things were falling apart for FaZe, but Sage made this insane play with the vehicle to get his team some points on the board. Team Destroy was on high ground and they just started beaming down on the other teams, and they ultimately took map 2 and were definitely one of the fan favorites for this event. But after 2 games, they were pretty far behind, and Team Falcons had that point advantage, with many teams like Colony 2K, FaZe, COD Community trailing really close behind. When we got to the 3rd map, things started to play a little different. Like I said, teams were probably a little bit anxious in the first 2 maps, but everything started to slow down and get a little more methodical in the 3rd map. Team Aiden even managed to get off to a great start this game. However, when the final circle came around, to everyone's surprise, Team Huskers, who had been relatively quiet to this point, managed to make it into the top 3. With both of his teammates down, Huskers made a dive to the buy station to get them back, and then made this insane play to save the game.
Down, it's Rocket, it's Zaktar. They're blasting up again into second. They had 7 kills yesterday in total. Could they win it all, or will the veteran of Huskers win by himself? He says, bring me my teammates. We're not done yet.
Now we make it a 3v2. We cut the difference, throw some thermites into the mix, and the swing comes in. We get Rocket. Now we're looking for Zaktar. Brawling from the high ground. He drops down, cleans it up, and the Huskers return to form is what we need on land.
That was some really solid IQ for him to get that quick kill. And with 10 eliminations and the win, Team Exiles, or Huskers team, was awarded 20 points for map 3. And I have to say, the one thing that I enjoyed about day 2 was definitely the variety of winners, at least for the first 5 maps. It gave like a lot of Warzone players that, and some other teams, a chance to put on for themselves. And in game 4, we would see a different winner once again. In map 4, we started seeing some of the bottom, lesser known teams start to crumble under the pressure. Like for the bottom 20 teams, the lead was looking impossible to come back from, and some teams were honestly starting to chalk it at this point. But with this match point advantage, the tournament is truly never chalked. So for these teams, I feel like they should have been on go and just trying to push everything they possibly could. But for some teams, they really just gave up at this point. FaZe Black was able to get control of Superstore very early in the game, which allowed them to loot up and play for positioning. They even ended up fighting Omit EU when this happened.
Whatever it was that Biffle was rocking, that is more than half at this
But
point.
FaZe was also fighting to stay alive, with Swag clutching up in his gulag to keep his team alive.
Faced up against Swag here on the other side. You get that information on the left. We swing through the center. We hit fire, but Swag puts DJ down there.
But as the zone started to close and teams started to fall, FaZe Black was doing a great job playing trades. Things really opened up for them when Blastful got this insane 3-piece.
Level of tenacity and confidence that really like drives the teams through this kind of competition, and that we saw from those teams like Omit and like Falcons yesterday. And they've also been really...
After this, the team had all the confidence that they needed to go forward, and then FaZe Black made it to the final 2, with Gabe jumping in the water to win map 4. And so by the end of map 4, Falcons had a 2-point lead over COD Community, who led the tournament in elimination this weekend. Team Aiden and FaZe trailing really close behind. Like if Team Falcons hit that match point, it could be over. They were only 50 points from reaching it too, so they just needed 1 or 2 good games, and then it was match point. And as we already know, that's exactly what happened. In map 5, COD Community, who like I said was in 2nd place, started popping off this game. Dongi had one of his best games with 9 eliminations, but he got stuck in this really awkward position and fell to Vortex, Robstar, and Blade, who I didn't really see too much of this tournament. I wish I would have seen them pop off a little bit more, but they took down COD Community in this map, and the end zone was on another mountain, which Team North rotated to early in his game and held high ground for the rest of the map. There's actually a really funny story behind this map. So I said Team North, which is probably a team that you have not heard of, and on day 1, they were actually the first squad eliminated from the tournament when Miles went up.
Gooey, first team to be eliminated here in the first map. How you feeling?
I'm feeling good.
Right on, brother, as you should. Well, mate, you'll get them next time. And just to remind you of that, we have a small medal for you that says, better luck next time. Hopefully this is a good luck charm for you in the next one, man. Good luck. Back to the casters.
Wow, that is brutal, Miles. All right, better luck.
That's ridiculous. But he gave him a medal that said better luck next time, and Gooey actually brought it with him to day 2 and told Miles that he was going to wear it for when he won a map. And all I'm going to say is he's a man of his word. Instead of losing confidence, Team North used this better luck next time medal to motivate them. They took out Team Falcons, they had the high ground, and they ultimately won in map 5 on day 2 in the most important day of the tournament. I thought that was a pretty funny backstory, though. I've never seen an interview like that. That's wild. Despite not winning the map, Team Falcons were closing in on the match point and were now only only 26 points behind, with Scummin's team trailing really close once again. At this point, Scummin was leading with 27 eliminations after 5 maps, with his teammate Dongi having 25. But in map 6, everything changed when Team Falcons started to heat up. They hadn't really done much in day 2 as far as winning a map goes, but they were getting the eliminations that they needed, and they had a 40-point advantage, so they didn't have to go out guns blazing in the second day, but they started to turn up when it mattered. During map 6, FaZe was knocked out pretty early in the top 17, and FaZe Black made it to the top 5, so the previous winners were out, and nobody was able to match up with the Falcons. They were playing really smart in getting the positions that they needed for the end game, and they picked up Hisoka to make these end game play calls for them. They had a close fight with Team Super Evan that gave them the upper hand that they needed, and then they went on to beat this.
This tournament is not over, but we are one step closer, and the question is, will they close it out in a victory on the other side? Super Evan has no chance. The Falcons finally fly to their very first victory of day 2.
And Team Falcons became the only team with match point, meaning that if they win the next game, they won the entire tournament. And I'm not going to spoil it. Well, actually I am. They won the next game, and I was honestly so confused by this game. Like, I was smacking myself in the head because I was just like, if you're one of the bottom 20 teams in the tournament, why wouldn't you land on Team Falcons at the beginning? In game 7, when Team Falcons had match point, they were uncontested, and they just were able to just glide their way into the end game. I feel like if you're the match point team, you should be getting targeted every game nearly. Nobody wants you to win. That's the whole point of the match point system. You weren't gonna, I'm like, I don't know, whatever. Anyways, with this victory, the dynasty has been cemented, and Biffle, Shifty, and Hisoka are the best trio in Warzone history.
The flip of the coin lands on a nice edge. Freddy, Zanks, you have no chance, my friends. All 3 up, and they're gonna style on them. The Falcons needed 1. The Falcons
earned $300,000 and had this to say afterwards.
I need one individual, man. Rob, you need to admit that us 3, we are the greatest trio to ever play this game. That Diaz Biffle is the best player in the fucking world. It is not anyone that he has said it was. He is the greatest of all time.
So we'll see if anyone can knock them off of the top of the Warzone scene. As of right now, they are the reigning champions, and it's much deserved, man, and ultimately concluded an exciting, interesting World Series of Warzone. This tournament started off as a disaster, with some people in attendance saying day 1 was bad, even being there, like I said, because of the wait times and all that. So hopefully if the World Series of Warzone land continues next year, which I really hope it does. Like, I know Warzone's in its beginning stages, so things aren't going to be perfect, but I feel like this was a great step in the right direction. I honestly really enjoy watching Warzone. I'm really into the CDL, as you guys know, but watching this Warzone tournament really opened me up to the Warzone scene, and I want to start making more videos about it. But it was really cool to look back and kind of recap the tournament. I couldn't get to everyone, or else this video would be like an hour long. I just can't do that, bro. But I hope that I did a decent job explaining kind of what happened, who won, some of the highlights, and also if there was anything that I missed, or like if you want to put your favorite moments of the tournament, some things that I didn't say, leave them down below, because I want to like read all your guys' experiences, what you guys thought of the tournament, that type of stuff. I've been seeing all different types of opinions about it. Like this guy, he said day 1 was definitely a show, and day 2 was far better. Falcons dominant as to be expected, but they were given that final game when nobody chowed them off rip. The only thing that annoyed me was the smoke thermite spam. Hopefully the removal of the backpack system will mitigate that next time, and I'm glad things kind of smoothed over in day 2. Overall, I thought this tournament was really good for what it was. The stage was looking really cool, and the production was pretty solid. Like, shout out to the casters, because in those long wait times they kept on talking and kept the audience engaged, and it was also a chance for some teams to get their names out there. So the Warzone scene is very far from where it can be, but with the right changes, I think that the World Series of Warzone really does have the potential to grow into a successful esport. But with that, the 2024 World Series of Warzone has come to a close, and I gotta say congratulations to Team Falcons and Nick Cool for cashing out this weekend. They clutched up when it mattered. Thank you for watching this video. If you enjoyed it, check out this video where I covered the CDL versus Warzone Pro debate. I'm locked in for the rest of 2024, so I'm excited, man. Let's get it. If you guys have any ideas, leave them down below, man. Hope you have a great week, and I'll see you in the next video. Until then, peace.